So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing, just the energy. He's like a baby deer, you know. He's just kind of all over the place, you know. It's good, you know.
And we're back with TigerNet Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Golden, here with David Hood. And David, another Clemson championship.
You know, it was a really fun night in Charlotte, that's for sure. And to tell you how fast things can change, if I can just, go ahead and kind of get started on this. I was at the walkthrough in the stadium Friday at Bank of America. So to kind of explain, with the ACC, you have the head coaches press conferences on the Friday before the game, and they come to the stadium and we go into the Panthers interview room, and it, you don't really have a whole lot of important stuff. It's more, hey, we're happy to be here, happy to be at the game tomorrow, that type of deal. And I told Nikki, I said, that's my wife. I said, everybody just looks a little flat right now. Like, it just doesn't seem to be a lot of, hype for this one. The team came out for the walkthrough, and that was kind of understated and muted. And then they get to the stadium Saturday, and I'm down in the tunnel and I'm watching, and somebody goes, they look flat. And I was like, man, what is going on here? And then they start out and they look flat, right? It just wasn't a great start. And then 2 enters the game, and all of a sudden there's life again. It was really just interesting to kind of see that all play out.
I kind of have to eat my words a little bit, because I think last week I made the comment, I said, there's a lot of talk about from the South Carolina game, why not put Kade in? My thought is, is it going to make a difference if guys aren't catching, if everything else, if the play calling isn't there? And for whatever reason, him being in Saturday changed a lot of that. I mean, guys who were, I don't know if he was, just hitting, if he was throwing better passes, I don't know what, but the ball was getting spread around. Guys who had not necessarily had good games lately played pretty well. The play calling got extremely creative. We had Phil Moffitt throwing a pass to Kade. It was like a different team than what we had watched for the last 12 weeks.
Yeah, how about the fact that Phil Moffitt is now the highest rated passer on the Clemson roster? How awesome is that, with his one pass for 19 yards? That's great, right? But and here's another thing. Like, I was talking to somebody after the game, and I said, if I told you before the game that Will Shipley would have 7 carries for 25 yards, what would you say would happen? And he said, well, Clemson just got blown out. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way that you would see it, right? And instead, Will Shipley has, 7 carries for 25 yards, and Clemson blows out North Carolina because the kid was really good. The kid was great. And, I think it was funny. We get down on the field after the game, and I kind of raised my eyebrows, let's just say that, at a coach. And I turn and I look at Kade, and the coach grins and goes, the light came on for him. That's all I'm going to say. The light came on. And I'm like, yeah, the light came on for the entire offense is what happened. And, I think somebody might have actually got mad at me, because I also tweeted out that this was the first time in a long time that this has looked like the Clemson offense. And people tend to forget things. Like, so let's not rewrite history. Somebody's like, okay, well, it's the first time in 2 years that Clemson's offenses look like Clemson's offense. Like, not so fast. Clemson offense looked pretty good up at Wake Forest, right? DJ was great that game. He was on point, throwing well. There were other games where I thought he really played, and he played well against NC State, other games. But for whatever reason, he lost his way. That's really the only way that you can put it. Just lost his way. And, you look at it, and the kid came in, and the kid provided this unbelievable spark. And I thought it was really funny that Davis Allen, I don't know if anybody caught our video with him after the game. And I said, Davis, what is Kade like? And Davis Allen likened him to a baby deer. He's just a baby deer out there. He's all legs, running around, kind of hyper. I've always said all year that he's kind of like a puppy running around, but there's no doubt the ball got out on time. The ball got out fast. He made fast decisions. The ball was accurate, and the offense ran with incredible tempo. And that's really all you need to know. And that turns into, I think they scored on every drive but one that he was in there.
I'm looking at a number right now that's throwing me off. It's just incredible. It looks like 12 different Tigers caught a pass. When's the last time we had that many guys catch a pass in a game? It's been a while.
It's probably been a while, because it seems like every game it's a little, a lot of Antonio Williams, and then a little bit of Ngata, and a little bit maybe of Bo Collins or somebody else. But the ball was spread around, including Kade Klubnik caught a pass. How about that? With that throwback. So let me kind of, if you don't mind, let me kind of walk you through what I saw from the press box. First of all, watching DJ in warm-ups and watching Kade in warm-ups, I'm sitting there going, man, they're both really good. They're both very accurate. The ball was coming out of DJ's hand really smooth. A lot of life on it. DJ kind of looked like he always looks before a game, like he's kind of dialed in. And I went down, I was on the sidelines, and I ran into somebody down there, and I said, so what's going to happen? Are we going to see two at all tonight? And he smiled and said, I don't know about all that. But I could tell by the way he said that we were going to see two at some point. So that means when I get to the press box, I'm watching through my binoculars. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I put the binoculars up. And so DJ has the real bad first series. And what do? I go up with binoculars. I'm watching that Clemson sideline. I'm not even watching North Carolina play offense. And so I see DJ go and get on the headset. And I see Kade talking to Hunter Helms, who's the backup quarterback, also on the headset. So I'm going, okay, so obviously the kid's not coming in now. And then DJ has the second series, and Clemson has to punt again, and they don't look like they're very good. I did not see Dabo go to Kade. But what I did see was I saw Kade talking to Hunter Helms, who again is on the headset. And next thing I know, Kade straps on his helmet, puts the chin strap up, and he grabs a football and he starts throwing. Well, now I saw that in the South Carolina game, and I thought maybe he'd come in, but he never did. So I'm continuing to watch, and then all of a sudden I see him really start to stretch. And I turned to Nikki and Brandon, Brandon Reek, who's also a TigerNet employee, and I said, I think the kid's coming in, but I'll tell you in just a second. And so North Carolina did whatever they were going to do, and I saw Kade pull off his helmet and get on the headset. And I said, this is it. Here we go. We're live now. When we come back, Cade's going to be the quarterback. And, they kind of had that one quick pass to kind of get him going, get him lathered up a little bit. Then they get him hit. And it was just so much fun to watch after that. That beautiful throw where he kind of had to wait for Davis Allen to break into the corner of the end zone and kind of float free. And he throws it off of his back foot, but it was still accurate. There was another throw to Brandon Spector where I talked to Brandon after the game. So remember, he zipped it over to Brandon over there on the left sideline, and it looked like it might have been intercepted right off the bat. And then Brandon turns it into a long game. And Brandon said that was not the original play, that it was, I think, a screen. But the kid read it right off the bat. This is not going to be great for the screen, and made the decision to go over there, went with another option. And I think that just tells you all you need to know. He made that decision so fast, and that ball got over there so fast, it almost surprised Brandon Spector that it was coming. And it turns into a big game, and I think that's kind of some of the things that have been missing. And again, talked to somebody this week who said they think that DJ's just so scared of making a mistake, that last year some of the mistakes started to multiply. And even though he's a very self-reliant kid, they weigh on him, right? And when you don't trust yourself to make throws or to make decisions, that's going to happen. And then looking ahead with Kade, people say, hey, sometimes in practice, I think it was Tim Beret told me that his fiance Kade was at a practice, and one of Cade's passes hit her in the face. You're going to have to live with some things like that, right? You're going to have to live with some freshmen. Hey, I'm learning on the job mistakes, but he's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch.
With DJ, when you talk about the mistakes, you kind of look at this year and how that Florida State game, that NC State game, Wake, he just looked in a different mindset. He looked comfortable. He looked like he was having fun. And I don't know if the Syracuse performance set him back mentally or not, but you kind of go back and wonder if he doesn't have a better year in 2021, if he doesn't have his first game against possibly the best defensive unit in college football history.
Boy, and I had a front row seat for that because we were still coming out of COVID talking about that Georgia game. And I wanted Nikki and Brandon to be able to go and be able to cover the game, but we only had 2 seats in the press box. And so what I did was I told my boss, I said, hey, let me shoot photos for that game. I'm okay with a camera. I'm not great, right? But I do okay. So I was down there in the corner of the end zone, or down there in the back of the end zone, and I watched how fast all of those NFL defensive linemen were overwhelming Clemson's offensive line, and DJ just had no time. And, Dabo has told me no. DJ has told me no, that game really didn't resonate after it was over. They put it behind them, but I have to feel like it did in some way. I have to feel like that really hurt his confidence. And then, then at some point you got walk-ons and former walk-ons out there playing wide receiver for you because everybody's hurt. Your offensive line's not very good. And that, I think that took a toll on DJ. And then just to tell you the kind of kid that he is, after the game, he's down there on the field and all of these position groups. So there's a big ACC trophy down there. It's not an inflatable. It comes in different pieces, though. The football is one part of it. The base is another. The stand is another. And everybody wants to take pictures with their position groups with this trophy. And all of the position groups were wanting DJ to come and take pictures with him. That's the kind of teammate that he is. That's the kind of regard that everybody holds him. And he was all smiles, realizing, hey, I've probably lost my job, right? And I looked at him and I said, hey, I've got my phone here and I'd love to do an interview with you, but it's up to you. And he said, no, let's do it. And I said, but DJ, I've got to ask you some questions that may be uncomfortable. He said, no, let's do it. And he did all of the interviews and he did it great. And he just said, man, I'm a team first guy and I'm just happy that we won. And, I hope he realizes how much a part of that he was. And now let's talk about DJ. Now he gets to go somewhere else. I know that there was a report out there that he's going to go to UCLA and be with his brother. And, I've talked to people in that camp, and UCLA is not really in consideration for Mateo. That right now the top 3 are Ohio State, Oregon, and maybe Southern Cal. I would not be shocked to see Mateo wind up at Southern Cal. Would DJ wind up with his brother? Possibility. I don't think UCLA is really, I think that report is false. I'm not saying they wouldn't wind up at UCLA together at some point, but right now I just don't know that that's even a consideration. And DJ's got to go somewhere where they're going to let him be DJ. The offense that he ran at Bosco was him being a drop back passer, having, one read here, one read over there, and just letting it fly, right? Not running RPO, not running read option, just kind of running a fun and gun attack and letting it go. And that's where he needs to go. He would do really well with Mike Leach, maybe down at Mississippi State. And I don't even know if they've got, something open. Texas Tech, someplace where he can go fast and has a read and throws that read. And he's not having to really worry about, am I handing it off? Am I watching the defensive end and I'm pulling it? And then on the flip side, man, that Kade Klubnik kid is built for an RPO offense because he wants to tuck it and run it and he wants to catch passes. So DJ needs to go somewhere where he can run that type of an offense and just be comfortable being DJ Uiagalelei.
And it's funny you mentioned that because today Mateo put out the graphic that his final 3 are USC, Oregon, and Ohio State. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I don't see DJ going to any of those except maybe Oregon, just because they're losing Bo Nix. But I agree. I think DJ is as great as it would be to finish out his career with his brother. I think DJ needs to make the best decision for DJ and go to a place where he can play comfortably. And I think a fresh start is going to be a good thing for him.
Yeah, and you're right. I would not be shocked to see him wind up at Oregon. One of his coaches that he loves dearly is a big Oregon fan, and DJ grew up kind of going to Oregon games, and that offense I think would be fantastic for him. And if Mateo's there, it's going to make it easier for mom and dad to go to games next year, and he might have a shot to go in there and really compete. And he's closer to home. It's a lot closer plane flight from Eugene, Oregon to Los Angeles than it is from wherever you're going to Clemson, whether you're going to Granville Spartanburg or driving down to Atlanta or going up to Charlotte to catch a flight. It's a lot closer. I'd love to see him go someplace like that, and I think he can succeed. And and let's face it, man, I love Clemson fans, great people, but some of them have been very toxic regarding DJ, and he needs a fresh start away from some of these people, and that's just the honest truth.
And I think, when I see that, because I agree, there's been some, and every fan base has their bad eggs, don't get me wrong, but there has been some bad rhetoric with DJ, and it kind of makes me a little concerned for Kade, because I think my biggest fear is we get this is the same situation happens that, DJ came in 2 games in 2020 and that Notre Dame game really set the world on fire. And it was like, okay, Trevor's going to leave and we're not going to take a step back because we've got another 5-star elite quarterback. And then it just didn't work out. And I don't want Clemson fans to go overboard if Kade does not look, because I don't know how Cade's going to look in 2023, but if he comes out game 1 and doesn't look like the second coming of Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, I don't want there to be the same kind of rhetoric.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I've talked about this before. I think a lot of DJ's success in that Notre Dame game and that Boston College game was who he was throwing to. Because let's face it, he had Cornell Powell, he had DeAndre Overton, he had Amari Rodgers. He had some dudes, right? He had some NFL guys that he was throwing to out there, and that really helped. And last year, he didn't have any of that. He didn't have any NFL guys last year. And so Clemson is trying to rebuild that wide receiver room, and I think that there is hope for the future there. Hey, we haven't even talked about Cole Turner yet, but I like what I saw out of Kade, and to me, the wide receivers that we've been bashing for 2 years all of a sudden look a lot better with the ball getting out on time and on target.
Yeah, let's talk about that for the first. So Clemson's was one of, I think, 4 or 5 teams in the nation had a 100-yard receiver. Game 13 finally has one, and it's a guy that is redshirting this year. It's just incredible.
Yeah, so the coaches were really wanting to hold him. And so everybody, well, why did we hold him? Why did Clemson hold him when we could use wide receivers? Well, the deal is this is his only third year of playing football. I texted Nolan Turner, his brother, a couple of pictures, and I'm like, man, the kid did great. Kid's fantastic, but he's still learning. That's the important thing. And so they really wanted to give him a year to just learn the system, learn how to run routes, and that's what they've done. And now he can still play in the bowl game and still redshirt, right? So he's a freshman next year, and all of a sudden that wide receiver room looks a whole lot better. We still don't know if maybe Joseph Ngata is going to come back. Don't know if there's going to be any transfers out of that room. I haven't heard any. But Cole Turner is a bigger kid. I mean, he's not little like Hunter Renfrow. He's a bigger guy, and so I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to see if you answer the way that I answered it. I talked to a player who, let's just say, played back in the early days of Dabo Swinney, right? And this player said, hey, you know what? I've been to some practices. I've seen things. Do you know who Cole Turner reminds me of? And, of course, my first response was, hey, sure, Hunter Renfrow, right? And he goes, no, somebody that I played with. And I said, oh, okay, Adam Humphries. And he goes, no, don't think white kid, which was just a great response. He goes, don't think about a white kid. And I said, oh, okay. So now I'm really starting to think, okay, so let's think about that Peach Bowl game, right? who were some of the receivers that were out on the field that night? Well, it's not Sammy Watkins, And I said, am I thinking Jerron Brown maybe? And he said, nope, Nuke Hopkins. And I went, well, no, wait, now hang on. Let's put on the brakes. We're not ready to anoint Cole Turner as Nuke Hopkins yet. And he said, look, he still needs to be taught how to be physical and violent coming out. He needs to learn how to fight, but he's going to be taught that. But the way that he runs routes, which is really good, and the way that he catches the ball in his strong hands reminds me of Nuke Hopkins. And I said, dude, you've lost your mind. And then I went back and I watched the game and I'm like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of Baby Nuke in there. Hey, maybe that'll be his nickname, Baby Nuke, right? That's a great nickname. And so I was talking to somebody else, I guess Monday, and I said, you're going to think this is really funny. This is another person that's at practice a lot. I said, I was talking to XYZ, and guess who they said Cole Turner reminds him of? And he said, Nuke Hopkins. And I said, whoa, wait a minute now. And, it's just kind of the way everybody's looking at it, that this kid just can be that special. And I think we got a glimpse of it, man. And if that turf monster hadn't eaten him up on that long throw, turf monster gets him. How special would that have been? And then, were you at the game?
I watched on TV.
All right. So I have to tell you that watching that throw on TV, watching it on replay on film, has nothing on being able to watch that throw in person. I'm telling you what, I called it on Twitter. I called it an atomic bomb because that sucker was as high as it was long. I mean, it just was up in the air. He showed incredible arm strength. And then to put it on the money like that, like, are you kidding me? And then, of course, Cole comes down with a great catch. So, man, just so much to talk about, so much to be excited about, and I guess we're going to have another podcast early next week, and we can start diving into taking a look at Tennessee. But Joe Milton, Tennessee, Kade Klubnik, Clemson, Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee, Cole Turner, Antonio Williams, those guys for Clemson. This could be a really fun Orange Bowl. And it might be 44-41. We don't know. It might be shades of that Clemson, Ohio State Orange Bowl where Sammy caught 73 passes for 9,000 yards. Hey, I was there for that one. It may be a little bit like that one. This is going to be fun. And I told somebody the other day, I was texting with a friend and I said, hey, make me excited about driving to South Florida. Make me excited about that with two kids, 13 or 14 hour drive. And the reply was pretty quick. And it said, hey, you get to see Kade Klubnik play in person again. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Yep, that's right. I get to see this kid light it up and see if he can kind of take that next step. And it's going to be interesting. I'm sure that when bowl practice starts, we're going to get to view some of the first parts of bowl practice to see how he looks, what his body language is, how he kind of attacks being the starter out there. And man, just a lot to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. The Cole Turner Nuke Hopkins comparison makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because they're both basketball guys. Nuke was a guy that, gave it a try playing both football and basketball at Clemson. And really the time commitment was just the seasons overlapping is what really kept that from happening. But absolutely a guy that could have played Division I hoops. And I think, yeah, the more I think about it, the more that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And the great thing about Nuke is he is, as you mentioned in the basketball, able to use his body almost like he's boxing out for a rebound to shield defensive backs from the ball. And you kind of see Cole do a little bit of that too. And you also see how great his feet are and how he's able to use his hands to kind of catch it. So it's funny. I was down up underneath the goalpost during warmups, and I was talking to one of the Clemson student managers, and BT Potter's kicking kicks, and we're all trying to catch him off the net or trying to catch him in the air. And even I'm down there kind of, thinking, hey, if one comes my way, I'm going to catch it. And one came and it hit me right in the hands, and I dropped it. And Nikki was laughing at me, and she said, it hit you in a bad spot, the hands. And I told her, I said, but you know what I tried to do? I tried to bring it into my body rather than actually use my hands to catch it. And that's a really important distinction, because you think about a basketball player, you don't have a basketball come into your body and catch it. You catch it out front, right? You catch it with your hands. And I think that's what made Nuke such a great receiver. And I think that's going to help Cole.
Absolutely. I think a lot of upside for him, and that will be, it's exciting to see that he might get his shot. I mean, that he will get his shot to play some more in the Orange Bowl, because I think that's going to be a good time for him. Another guy we'll flip to defense who we have to talk about is Nate Wiggins, who at one point, I mean, you go back to the Wake Forest game, had probably one of the worst games I've ever seen a defensive back have, and it's now turned into one of the best defensive backs in the ACC.
Oh yeah. He told us down in the tunnel after the game. He comes out and Nate's kind of all smiles a lot of times, and he kind of comes out and he kind of grins at us, and you can tell he's this happy-go-lucky kid. But we reminded him of that that night, and he said, "Oh man," and I promised myself after that game I was never going to have that kind of game again. That was never going to happen to me again. And sure, he's had his moments kind of since then where maybe regressed a little bit here and there, but he was responsible, I think, for denying North Carolina 17 points. Unreal, with the pass breakup and the interception. And then he was really funny, and he also had the blocked field goal. He was really funny on the interception, he said, because he had gotten a cramp the play before, and he was trying to work it out. And he said that he got past Drake May and got to about the 50, and the cramp came back. And so he's like, I'm trying to, still score, but I've got a cramp. And he's like, I'm going, oh. And he still looks like he scores. And then, if anybody goes back and look, my boss, Tommy Crumpton, took a great photo of DeAndre McDaniel, speaking of great defensive backs, who's trying to follow Wiggins down the sideline, and DeAndre has his handful of like notepads, and it looks like he's doing his taxes, right? Looks like he has all of his tax documents, and DeAndre's running with him, and Danny Pearman's running with him. So just a lot of fun to see him kind of really take that next step. And then Sheridan Jones, can he come back? He can. Malcolm Green's going to be back. Fred Davis is gone. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason with Clemson and the corners to kind of see who steps up with Nate Wiggins, who kind of takes that next step. Man, you had to be really pleased with what you saw out of Toriano Pride this year. And Jaden Lucas, he's still learning, kind of on the job. He's going to be really good. So much to talk about. Oh my gosh, we could fill up hours and hours talking about this. But Nate Wiggins is now that guy. He will be a preseason All ACC pick next year, and probably the number one guy for the Tigers.
When Nate was running that ball back, and I saw him kind of slow up, and he grabs at his helmet, and looking back on, I think he was just taking his mouthpiece out, probably to breathe. I thought he was doing the Deion Sanders high step with one arm behind the head, and I was like, what's he doing? And then I realized now, no, he was cramping up and still
He was cramping up.
But it just, I thought, I didn't know what was going on there.
And, we haven't talked about the defense. That was a play where Drake May, who's been really good. So Clemson, it was a little bit frustrating in a way to watch their defense, because they were attacking Drake May, absolutely. But it was bend but don't break. And that's what Wes Goodman said after the game. We wanted them to drive the field. We weren't going to give them the big play. We weren't going to let them hit Josh Downs over the top. He was only averaging, 5, 6, 7 yards a catch. He was catching a lot. Drives were, they were long drives, 10, 11. But Clemson didn't believe that North Carolina could consistently put those drives together without making a mistake, which is what we've seen teams do to Clemson over the past couple of years, right? And that was correct. So Drake May starting to feel a little bit of pressure there. And he throws it. The tight end had already, been pushed out of bounds. And I think that was just a quarterback trying to make a play that he probably should have eaten it or thrown it away or whatever. And Nate gets it, and it just changes the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a drive that looked like it absolutely could have put UNC back in position to, you know, to be in striking distance, and then it just that one play snaps. But you're right. You know, Josh Downs, I mean, he had 11 receptions for 100 yards. Good game, but did not have the big play, didn't break things open, didn't score. And that's that bend but don't break. It's exactly what it was. I mean, that was the defense. And I think sometimes from a fan perspective, it's frustrating to see that, because you see it, you get nervous when you see a team march down the field, but when you only give up 10 points to a team that's probably the best offense Clemson has faced this year, bar none,
Yeah,
it works.
it did. And, you know, I think forgotten in all this is the fact that North Carolina went down the field fairly easy, right? You know, on that opening drive, get a touchdown. And, you know, and that's when all of my friends were like, oh, it's over. This bowl game's over. It's done. North Carolina's going to blow Clemson out. But North Carolina, that was the touchdown that they got. And after that, it was blanked, and they got a field goal in the second quarter. Boom, shut out the final two quarters as Clemson's just out there, you know, kind of running wild with Kade Klubnik. And Clemson's defense, man, you just can't say enough about Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter. What a couple of studs. And you know, they combined for 18 tackles, and I think Trenton Simpson maybe had 8. So, okay, so 26 tackles with the 3 linebackers. And oh, by the way, how about the fact that Wade Woodaz, who's a linebacker, played some safety and got in on 6 tackles? How about that? And then, so funny story that Nikki had to relate this one to me after the game. The linebackers are out there taking their pictures with the trophy, like I told you the position groups do. And the linebackers are like, hey, Wade, get over here, take a picture with us. And he does. And the safety's like, nah, it's Wade, you coming over here to take pictures with us. You're a safety now. And he was kind of torn. Like, so he just wound up taking pictures with both of them. And man, you got to be really excited about what this defense brings back next year. Got to find some defensive ends. Maybe me and you playing defensive end in the season opener. We'll have to see. But you know, you got some great kids coming back. And again, plenty of time to talk about all that. But just, you know, this was one of those games where it felt right again. It felt like everybody could breathe again. It felt like Clemson football. That's what it felt like.
This was kind of a vintage Clemson football game in the sense that the third string quarterback Hunter Johnson gets in the game. He's throwing passes to Drew Sweeney and Ty Herbstreit. Like this is what glory days Clemson football used to be. Is you wanted to stick around to the end of these blowouts because you wanted to see who was getting in the game and what walk-ons were going to get some action.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but it was up in the press box. Somebody said, hey, you want to know how good Kade Klubnik is? And I said, how good? And they said, he's so good, he got Hunter Johnson, Ty Herbstreit, and Drew Sweeney snaps. And I'm like, there you go. That's exactly right. And it just felt like that was Klubnik in there, man. It felt like they were going to score every time, right? It just did.
Yeah.
You know, once he had those first 2 drives, it's like, okay, this kid's almost unstoppable. But again, one game against a defense that didn't prepare for him, against a really bad defense. So now he gets another opponent, gets an SEC program in Tennessee, who isn't very good against the pass. So, but now they get time to game plan for him. He gets time to game plan for Tennessee. And, you know, December the 30th, which is 22 days away, three weeks from tomorrow, we get to go to the Orange Bowl, and we'll get to see what he brings to the table now.
Absolutely. And so, you know, going into that game, kind of a thing I want to touch on before we close out. 9 guys declare for the transfer portal. We talked about DJ, couple of, you know, some other guys that provide depth. What does that look like for bowl prep? And I mean, are any of these guys able to stay on the team for the bowl, or are they just, I mean, is this kind of it for them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I called Ross Taylor probably Monday or Tuesday of this week. He is the Clemson football SID. And I said, Ross, you know, I want to know the answer to that question. And he said that, you know, as far as he knows, you know, that once you have announced your intention to go, you just are no longer a part of the team, right? So you're not going to bring a guy in who's going to, you know, say he's going to go somewhere else and let him play in the Orange Bowl. So yeah, these guys, you know, for all intents and purposes, they're done. Quickly in at your locker. Turn in your iPad with all of the information on there. Turn in your keypad. Go get your stuff out of the football facility, and wish you well and on your way. That's not being harsh. That's just reality. It's business. And people said, hey, were you surprised by anybody? It seems like Levante Bentley maybe surprised a lot of people with that. Didn't surprise me at all. I think he can play. His problem is that he's got Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter in front of him. And they're all they're both coming back next year. And Levante Bentley is good enough to go somewhere else and start. And so, yeah, go somewhere else and start, kid. If you've graduated, more power to you. The one that really surprised me, we had heard about Kobe Pace maybe even during the year before he got hurt, thinking about transferring. So that was not a surprise. Kevin Swint at defensive end, that one surprised me a little bit, because you got to figure that Miles Murphy is gone, the KJ Henry is gone, and Kevin Swint would be a starter, right? Or he would be able to compete for a starting spot. That makes me wonder a little bit now. Does XT come back? Does Justin Maskell come back? Right? Like, if he knows that, or if he's hearing those guys say, hey, I'm thinking about coming back, maybe he's thinking, okay, I'm not going to take another year of being a backup, because this is going to be, year number 3 or whatever for him. He wants to maybe go somewhere else and play. So I think that one's probably the only one that really shocked me.
That one did shock me too. And just in my opinion, and again, you know the team better than I do, I feel like, I know he hasn't announced, but I feel like Maskell coming back just makes enough sense. This will be his year to get most of the snaps.
This will be his year to be Kevin Dodd.
Yeah, exactly. XT,
Yeah.
it's a little more of a, there's a little more nuance to that one, but Maskell coming back just feels like that's the best decision for him.
Feels like it's the best play. He has really impressed me with how much he has improved. I go back to the year that Clemson played Ohio State down out in Phoenix. And I remember Justin, some of Ohio State's big plays early in that game were because Justin was in the wrong place all the time, and he was learning. And all of a sudden you see him and he's just playing so much better and playing with gap integrity. And, he can get better at rushing the passer, which is what you have to be as a defensive end in the NFL. And I think he can take that year to show, yes, I'm good against the run, but I can also go get the quarterback. And I hope he does. I think that would probably be the best thing for him.
Absolutely. I think really just an opportunity, and I think a guy that, he's been in the program so long, he's kind of like KJ in that he's had the opportunity, probably has had opportunities that he could have gone elsewhere, and he stuck it out, and just, you want to see him stick around and have that big year. So it definitely could be huge. I know there's some talented defensive lineman freshmen coming in as well. So that'll be good. I've been watching Peter Wood's highlights and just been jaw dropped at him. I'm excited for him at defensive tackle.
Hey, if Prime doesn't get them all, yeah, they'll be here on Clemson's campus if Prime doesn't get them.
Well, folks, we want to remind you, one of our good sponsors is Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports, and Prize Picks. If you do your first deposit, and use the code Tigers100, that's TIGERS 100, they will match up to $100 into that initial deposit. And I know last week we talked about tight ends having the big game, and it really wasn't them, because Springstool had 1 catch for a yard, Davis Allen 3 catches for 20 yards, but he did have a touchdown. But a guy, again, as we talked, the guy who was not on the Prize Pick board was Cole Turner, who had the big game. So that might be somebody you can watch for the bowl game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put Cole Turner on my Prize Picks board for that one, and we can put Kade Klubnik on there too, right?
Absolutely.
And when you talk about Tennessee's defense, let's talk about one more wide receiver very early on that we would put on there. Not a wide receiver. How about Davis Allen?
Yeah.
Let's get him going. But I'll tell you this, Jake Brenningstool's done a lot of throwing with Kade Klubnik. Maybe Brenny has his breakout game against Tennessee, because remember, he's a Tennessee native. He's from out of that Nashville area. So Maybe I'll go with Brenny instead of Davis Allen. That's my early thought.
I like that. I like that pick a lot. I think that could be a definitely a good one to watch. To get away from football, another guy I've had success with prospect has been Chase Hunter over on the basketball team.
Boy, well, let's talk first of all about Brad Brownell's basketball team. Trying to get PJ Hall back into it when they lost against South Carolina, and you go, oh, well, this team's not going to be very good. But all of a sudden, man, Hunter Tyson has put together some double-doubles, leading the team in rebounding, and is doing a great job. PJ Hall now starting to find his way. Brevin Galloway, did he even score last night? 2 points, but Clemson's still a great offensive effort without Brevin Galloway. And then Chase Hunter's just the guy. He can score if you need him to. I like the way that he drives and can dish, and he's playing pretty good defense too. So now all of a sudden you got a team that's jumping up in the Ken Bomb ratings. And, they had a 20-point win in their first ACC game against Wake Forest last week. And now you go, okay, hey, is this a team that's good enough to maybe jump into the NCAA tournament conversation?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. People are going to sit there and say, well, you lose to South Carolina. Why? Well, one, South Carolina has G.G. Jackson, who was a guy that was committed to UNC, is probably going to be a top 5 NBA pick and reclassified and comes to USC. I mean, it's just, this isn't necessarily your typical USC basketball team. And it was game 2. You hadn't had PJ Hall back. I mean, this team has progressed a lot. The only other loss they had was that loss the night for Thanksgiving against Iowa, where there was some questionable dealing with the shot clock. And again, that's a top 25 team that you lost to. This team's looking really good. I'm excited. This weekend they'll be in Atlanta playing Loyola Chicago. So I don't know if Sister Jean will be in the building, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so I hope you get to see Sister Jean. Let's first of all say this too. I mean, Towson is a good basketball team. That's a really good basketball team. They were 8-1 heading into that game, or 9-1. We were on our internal Slack channel on TigerNet, and my boss said, well, this just seems like the kind of game Clemson loses. But yet they find a way to win. And again, got different guys doing it every night.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch, and I think it's going to be a good year for Brownell and the Tigers. Earlier this year when the season started, I remember telling people, I said, this kind of feels like a year that the ACC is a little bit down, and Clemson has enough experience and talent that they can steal one of those top 6 spots and be a tournament team. Man,
you really hope so, don't you?
Absolutely.
That would be fun for everybody to kind of get back to the NCAA tournament. I know that, a lot of my, I have some good memories about going out to San Diego and seeing them win, against Auburn, and who was the other team? Anyway, it was a lot of fun, just a lot of fun. And I love college basketball, and it's kind of exciting that we're getting this going.
It's absolutely great to have college basketball back and have the Tigers win. And so a lot of good going on, a lot of excitement around Clemson. Just a good time. And before you know it, we'll be cranking up a new baseball season with a new coach.
Yeah. And we have recruiting National Signing Day that we'll probably have to hit on in our next podcast too. National Signing Day is coming up.
So exciting stuff all around.
Yeah, just echo a couple of things Josh said. First of all, this is really all you need for explanation on why it's awesome to be able to come down here to Miami and be a part of the Orange Bowl. Blue skies, palm trees. This is a beautiful venue, and having experienced it a few times, it's incredible. I'm excited for our staff and our players to be able to have this experience. And then what the Orange Bowl committee does throughout this community is unbelievable. Millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been generated, through the community, through the platform of football, I think is what makes football great.
This podcast is a production of Big Game College Football Network. For more information, please go to bgpodcastnetwork.com. For 24-hour streaming of all Big Game College Football Network podcasts, please go to biggamecfb.airtime.pro. All rights reserved.
Man, they've been asleep. What you talking about? Online.